Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. As Stephen mentioned, we're just giving you a glimpse. And a glimpse, by its very nature, is meant to be maybe a little bit more ephemeral and brief. And so our expectation is, if what you hear tonight intrigues you at all, we'd love to continue the conversation. Stephen and I are available throughout the summer by email, by Zoom, obviously, by phone call. So please reach out to us in whatever format that you like. We would be delighted to continue to tell you more about Loyola Blakefield as you continue your discovery. I'm just going to mention a couple of things because my expectation is that many of you are either beginning the process of searching for the next school home for your son, either for middle school or upper school, or, and we've heard a lot of this throughout the spring, your interest is learning how we engage students during these last couple of months. How in the midst of the COVID pandemic did we engage with virtual learning? Mr. Brian Marana, our assistant principal for academics, is going to address that a little bit more deeply, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. I hear the adjectives used about our school frequently is that we're creative and skillful. And what does that mean? That means during the pause, when we were engaging in distance learning, we were able to do it skillfully and in a really creative way. And we heard over and over from both students and parents how pleased they were with the process. Ideally, everyone would like to be on campus and seeing their friends and engaging face-to-face with teachers. But as the next best thing, we think we really did it right. So even though the school year just ended for us, we heard those compliments repeatedly. And to that end, I just wanted to hope you'll indulge me for a minute. We were shared with us an email from our principal, Mr. John Marinacci, an email that he got from a parent, pretty representative of the sentiments that parents have been expressing about distance learning. So I'm just going to read this to you real briefly. He doesn't mention the boys by name because he didn't want to give away their identity, but he said, since the boys have been working and learning from home, I've gotten a new appreciation for your school. It's allowed me to finally learn the secret sauce at Loyola that so consistently turned out such outstanding young men. It's your outstanding faculty. And I'll second that notion. I always had a sense that you had great teachers, but during these last few months, I've had the opportunity to see and hear them at work firsthand. I could not help but overhear and occasionally intentionally eavesdrop on the boys' classes. When my wife would come home from work, I'd immediately recount highlights from Mrs. Petter's art class or Dr. Donovan's English class, just to name a few. I was so impressed with their teachers' knowledge, creativity, level of engagement, and palpable love and care for their students. In my view, this can only happen when a compelling mission, and I think the Jesuits can claim such, intersects with the right people and strong leadership. We're so grateful for the experience that you have given our boys. It will stay with them for their entire lives, and we will always be grateful. So they're expressing gratitude during a period of time when we're hearing from some other school districts and some other schools less than a satisfying experience. So we're grateful for our faculty, of course. Loyola is also an expanding community. If you are anywhere in the vicinity of our campus and happen to drive by, you'll see that a new building is under construction, and we're really excited about that. That new building is going to house our middle school. So the middle school will have new space, including lab space, art space. The building will also be home to our new library. Libraries in the 21st century are no longer shush libraries where everybody's quiet and there's stacks of books all around. This will be an engaging space with lots of student meeting space and opportunities for interaction. It's also going to give us an opportunity to expand our STEM opportunities. We have an internationally recognized cybersecurity program, so they will have some new space, as well as our robotics program. It will go online for fall of 2021, so we're really excited about that. So Loyola's expanding. You can actually see the webcam of the construction progress if you go to our homepage and click the Ignite tab. And then finally, Loyola, like all Jesuit schools, is adaptive. Jesuit education has been around since St. Ignatius of Loyola founded the order over 500 years ago. And Jesuit educational institutions have always been adaptive, and we continue to be so. A couple of new programs coming online, one for the upper school, and that's going to be a reintroduction of our honors program. So this fall, 37 freshmen will take part in an integrated liberal arts scholarship program that integrates history, English, and theology. And that's going to be taught across curricular lines by teachers. So we're thrilled about the opportunity to engage the boys in that way. They also have the opportunity, obviously, to engage in upper level math and science classes as well. So that's one that has been a long time coming, and we're really excited for it. We're also introducing a new schedule next year, one that's going to allow for a lot more student engagement, cross-collaborative design, and the opportunities for teachers to collaborate. One of the drawbacks about many schools is the inability for teachers to talk to one another and collaborate on producing a compelling curriculum. We're going to have that in our new schedule, so we're really excited about that. Again, this is just a glimpse of some of the changes that are coming, and we'd like you to learn more by continuing to have a conversation with us. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brian Marana. As I said earlier, he's our assistant principal for academics, and he can share with you some of the progress we've been making this spring. Brian?
Great, thanks, Mr. Feeley. Mr. Feeley talked a little bit about adaptation and adaptability as a hallmark of Jesuit schools over the last 450, 500 years. And that's absolutely what we had in mind as we moved into this really unprecedented period of school closures due to COVID-19. We took some time to formulate something that would be adaptive to the students. But I will say that what has helped is that over the past several years, we've been moving towards more intentional use of technology in the classroom. So a few years ago, we started a one-to-one tablet program. So all of our students from grades 9 to 12 currently bring a Microsoft tablet to school as part of their learning. So again, that's a fairly recent change at Loyola, and it meant that over the past several years, we've been doing extensive training with our teachers and with our students on how to use different technological tools to support learning. And an important piece of that conversation is to think and discern carefully how to use technology and when not to use technology. We talk a lot about being discerning users of technology and not to use it for the sake of using it, but to use it only when it enhances things. And we've been having those conversations only to be in a situation where all of that preparation, all of that development really paid off. And so we were prepared to make that switch. And initially, we bought ourselves just a little bit of time by using a model that we used for snow days, right? So if a blizzard hits, typically what we do is we give everyone a couple of snow days where, okay, don't worry about homework, go out and go sledding and have fun. But if this is going to be an extended type of situation, then here are the guidelines, right? Here's how much homework teachers will give in the day, and this is where you can find it, and this is what's expected of students. So we moved to that model on a dime. And we as we saw things coming, we told our teachers, hey, let's be prepared for this. And as soon as we heard word from Governor Hogan that the state was closing down, we moved to that model immediately, and we were able to make a pretty quick shift. But we also knew that that wasn't going to be a long-term solution because just like snow days aren't supposed to be a long-term situation either. So we said, what do we want to do, and how do we as a school be discerning users of technology? And we really thought carefully about putting the students at the center of the experience. We knew that these were times that brought stress and anxiety and uncertainty to students and to parents and to teachers, and we wanted to take all of that into consideration. We knew that students felt disconnected. We knew that they felt disconnected from their peers and from the school and from their teachers. And so what we decided was to come up with a setup in which students would see their classes twice a week. So each class met twice a week for about 50 minutes. They'd get a little bit of work in between those two meetings. We moved back the start of the day. We knew that time schedules would be messed up. So instead of starting at 8, we started at 9:30, and we kept it until 3:30, which is not too much later than we normally would have run. We had Wednesdays off for students to do work on their own, so they could continue doing homework. They could check in for office hours with their teachers, but it also gave them a bit of a break from the screen time, because we were trying to balance so many different things. We want the learning to move forward. We want there to be that connection that comes from that live video conference meeting, but we also don't want to overrun students with screen time as well. So we struck that balance. And what was nice is that over the course of the past several weeks now, we've had great attendance. We were able to take attendance, which, it took us a little bit of thinking about how we would do that. But once we got it together, we managed to take attendance, and attendance was fantastic. We had multiple teachers saying that it was the best attendance that they've had, in their 15 years of teaching, just because no one has anywhere else to be, and they're here and they're present. And they're making the most of what they needed to do. So we managed to do well with that structure. The other piece of that education side of it was to also change the way we were doing some instruction, and to be very intentional about the way that we were doing our tests and our final assessments. So as you all know, it looks very different when you can't come into class and sit down and take a paper and pen test. And so teachers became very creative, and in fact, in many ways, they were continuing some of the work they were already doing. So we saw all kinds of physics projects where students were throwing eggs at blankets, and Italian classes where students were cooking pasta, but filming the video in Italian. We had English classes where students had to memorize a poem, and they memorized them and recited them blindfolded. We had experiences where students were creating podcasts as a way to demonstrate their learning, making PowerPoint presentations, just all kinds of interesting things that were happening across the curriculum. We had a virtual art gallery. We had our chorus put together, a song where everyone was singing together at the same time, with the different tiles of students showing up. So it was amazing to see everything that happened. We continued with things like guest speakers. So we had an Afghanistan war vet come and speak to our students of American government. We had Shakespearean actors come and speak to our British literature students about their experiences acting different characters in Shakespearean plays. So it was amazing to see how, in many ways, we continued the mission using the technology available to us and just being adaptive. I think what our experience with COVID-19 highlighted were two really important aspects of Jesuit education. The style of education that the Society of Jesus and these priests have continued for nearly 500 years. The first is that education in the Jesuit context is about reflecting on direct experience, which means that the experiences need to be rich. And that's why we had to move away from that snow day model, so that we could have those conversations, have those guest speakers, so that we could ask students to do those cooking lessons or to get outside and film themselves doing things. It's experience that really counts. And so when you come to Loyola and you see our engineering students in the maker space, or you see our biology students teaming with an art teacher to take pictures through the microscopes and then do kind of visual digital design with them, it's the experience that really counts. But it's not the experience alone. And the other key piece of Jesuit education is reflection. Reflecting on experience as well. And during COVID-19, we had daily mass. We had, at the end of the day, something called our daily examine, which is a 5-minute time for us to think about what was meaningful in our day. Where did we find success? Where did we find peace or goodness? Then where did we find challenge, or where did we feel disturbed? And in fact, that's an extension of what we do every day. At the end of the second to last period, every day, over the PA, we have someone that leads the whole school in a reflection on the day. And so you see that echoed also in the retreats that are offered at every year level. We also have sports team retreats, the cyber team, they have their own retreat. And so reflecting and making meaning of the experiences is very much a big part of who we are. So COVID-19 showed us that we continue that sense of reflection and experience. It also showed that we're going to stay really focused on who we are as being part of this global mission. As a Jesuit school, we're a Catholic school, and so we continue to have theology class. We have theology class or religion class every year. Obviously, those classes continued over the past several weeks, but we've, again, kept up that faith piece of our identity as well. I've mentioned Mass, but there are many opportunities where students were praying with each other and for each other, as they do on an everyday basis. We also are part of this mission that calls us to be men for others. And we saw that also, again, with our students who themselves ran student-led conversations about things like mass incarceration. After what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, we had some students that said, we would like to lead a conversation about this, and how can we make sense of this? And with the teacher support, students led a video conference about those types of things. And that's very common, the sense of this mission, the sense of wanting to serve and be of service to others is a big part of who we are. It's also worth noting that we're part of this global network as well. And certainly teachers have been in touch with Jesuit schools from around the world as we've collectively tried to navigate all that's happening. And that's part of who we are as well. And when we're not closed down as we are now, in the normal operating day, we have all kinds of opportunities for our students, not only to do service, but to do that in a global context. And so we were saddened that this year our annual service trips to Belize and Jamaica and our annual cultural exchange trip to China, those were canceled. But those are just a taste of programs that we typically offer as part of our education. Ultimately, what we want to do here is we want our students and our teachers to encounter the world in their experience, to try to make sense of all those encounters with the ideas that they learn in the classroom, and then to bring that all together into a healthy and integrated self. Not just so that each and individual student can live a fully human life, but that he can enable others to do so as well. We have a great example of that in Kyle Weaver, who's joining us today. He's one of our students. And we think at this time it'd be a good chance for you to hear from him about his lived experience and what he finds unique about being at Loyola. Kyle.
Kyle, it looks like you're muted, bud. Hey, Kyle, you're muted.
Oh, he may be having some technical difficulties.
Yeah. Why don't we then go on to the Moore family? Mr. and Mrs. Moore are two of our parent representatives, and then after they get done telling you a little bit about how their family and their three boys have adapted to the community, we can get Kyle back on.
Hi, sorry.
Hi. Hi, Kyle, are you on?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Kyle.
All right.
Sorry, my toolbar disappeared. So my experience at Loyola has only been good. The first drew was when I shadowed, and how everyone there was so nice and just amazing, and I generally just felt accepted there. And I just knew that that was the place where I belonged. And Loyola is a special place because you make this connection with other students. You have this sort of brotherhood. Like, sure, you're all friends, but you're friends that will stick with each other through the thick and thin. You'll be lifelong friends with the guys you meet at Loyola. And there are plenty of opportunities to meet guys through, say, extracurricular activities like sports or retreats like the Neighbors Retreat, which was, in my opinion, for me, it was a turning point for me at Loyola. Now, the retreat took place at the beginning of this year, And there I met a bunch of amazing people, people I never would have met otherwise. And through that, I was able to find that I'm actually good at stuff like forensics, which is speech and debate. And through that, I made so many friends, like, say, like a couple friends like Brennan Fanzone or Kevin Wallner. And these guys are just amazing. We text back and forth every day. Sometimes we'll call each other. Even through this COVID, when we're not able to see each other, we're still talking and having fun. So that's the sort of brotherhood that you get at Loyola. These people feel like your family. And another great thing about Loyola is that all the teachers there are there to support you. Like, as Mr. Marana said earlier, we had on Wednesdays where you could call with your teachers, and the teachers were always there and very willing to give you help. Even when we weren't in this social distancing, the teachers were always there for you. You could knock on someone's office and they'd be there, or they'd be in class. But if they were there, they were always willing to help you. And a bunch of my friends were also willing to help. Like, say, with math, I always would ask my friend Tyler for help because he's a lot smarter than I am when it comes to math. And so you just make these connections with people. And these connections are going to last a lifetime. So Loyola has just been an amazing place for me, and everyone that goes here loves it. As I'm sure Miss Janice knows with her boys, I'm sure that they love it here and they have friends like this.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you. And then next we have the Moore family, as I started to introduce previously, and they will tell you a little bit about their family's transition into the community and how their boys have felt over their time at Loyola.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Abrams. And yes, Kyle, you are so right. I'm Janice Moore, and I'm joined with my husband, Percy, and we do have 3 boys that attend Loyola. And let me tell you, Kyle is right. They miss their brothers so much. They would rather have 10 hours of school a day at school and be able to see their brothers than to be home, I guess, with their real family. I don't know. But anyways, I just want to thank everyone that came and joined us today. I'm always so very excited to talk about Loyola. Like I said, we've got 3 boys there. We've got a rising senior, a rising freshman, and an 8th grader. And I know that even to consider going, attending a private school, and many of you are on your academic journey for your children, I know it can be a very daunting experience. I know that it can be an experience that makes you think, wow, we live in really great areas that have great schools already. Why am I going to go ahead and consider the distance to get to school, the financial part of going to school? But one of the things that I would love to share, and Percy may have some input on this too, is that those were all concerns that we had when we were looking about enhancing our children's academic career. And one of the things that we learned and that we are experiencing and that we were actually looking for was that we really wanted our children to be well-rounded citizens, global citizens, academic citizens, and spiritual citizens. And that was something that was really near and dear to our heart. We really wanted it to be a Catholic school. We really wanted them to be in an environment where they were every day challenged and stimulated to not just learn about the world, but learn about their role in the world. And we have just been so impressed with the faculty, the leaders at Loyola, everybody at Loyola, who every day inspires and stimulates our boys to just discover who they are. And, you know, you can't get that at every school because sometimes they're really not allowed to be curious about everything. And along with being curious about themselves as young men that are turning into men for others, they're also in very stimulating and sometimes sensitive conversations. And so along with learning how to be spiritual and academic and global citizens, they're also learning how to listen and communicate about sensitive issues going on in the world and great issues too. So I am just happy that our experience or our children's experience has allowed us to see their growth as people, not just students, but as men for others. And so, and plus I love the family community too. It's not just an investment in our children's education. We experienced that when our boys got in, we got in as a family too. So it is an entire experience for the family. So, Dave, did you have anything to add to that?
So those of you that have been married as long as I have know that I know when it's my turn to speak and I wait for my permission. But I will tell you that 3 boys spanning 5 years at Loyola, all the things that Janice said were spot on. But the one thing that I remember is parents sitting up one day when we first got there, and we were probably in the seats that you were in, inside of the cafeteria, and she said, at this school, it's cool to be smart. And I think that that was one of the things I carried with us forever. And now we have our older son who is a rising senior, so he's selected this college, but we're looking at colleges, going through all these different caliber of schools. And the one thing that many of these colleges came down and they said is like, oh, you go to Loyola. And they automatically knew that that badge meant not just academically challenged, not that you could just handle the work, but also that you were going to be a well-rounded men for others, as the motto states. And that was told to us on many occasions. And we're talking schools from Ivy Leagues to not Ivy Leagues. Each one of them, the recruiters in this area, said the same thing about Loyola. That's not detracting anything from the other schools, but I will say that they always pinpointed Loyola as that school. They knew when a kid came out of there, they could handle the workload of where they would go for college. So I'm super pleased. Obviously, we have 3 boys there, so we must be super pleased with the environment and the inclusivity of all the family, the faculty, up to the president. The access that the kids have is just amazing. So I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Moore, for those words. Before I chat with you guys a little bit about our student life, I just want to remind you, if you have any questions, don't be shy to put them in the chat. And then after I talk about student life, and I'll pass it to Mr. Feeley, we'll get to any questions that we have before we wrap up. So just want to put that back out there for you to put your questions in. So what is student life like at Loyola? It's honestly, it's rich, it's engaging. The breadth and the depth of the offerings that our dons have to choose from is quite riveting. For me as an adult, it's a little bit overwhelming as I see all the different clubs and the sports and the retreats. But for our dons, they embrace it. They are able to really explore, the areas that speak to them. I always say, they're finding their micro community within our larger community, and there's so much for them to jump into. So our Ignatian Mission and Identity Office runs a very robust retreats and service retreat project and initiatives. Each grade goes on retreats in the beginning of the year and then some at the end of the year. The great thing about the retreats that we offer is that they're all led by fellow students, and it allows for our dons, our younger dons that are coming up through the ranks, our middle school guys and 9th and 10th graders and 11th and 12th graders too, to have these role models to look up to. They have guys that they see what does it mean to be a Don? When they're having those conversations at the retreats, they're able to really sit down and feel comfortable in speaking and having those connections. We have so many different service opportunities. Mr. Marana touched on, trips abroad to places like Belize. We have trips here in the United States, going to Philadelphia, Camden, New Jersey, here in our own hometown in Baltimore. So there's so many opportunities for the guys to get outside of their comfort zone, to meet new people, to experience new cultures, and to really embody what it means to be a man for others. Clubs and activities. One of the questions I always get asked is, Mr. Abrams, what clubs and activities do you have? And I say the better question is, what don't we have? There's so much for the guys to participate in. In the beginning of the year, we have a club fair where all the clubs will set up at lunchtime, and the boys are able to walk around and check out all the different clubs that are available. Some of my favorites are our LSN club, Loyola Sports Network, where they will broadcast and do color commentary for our various sports, basketball, lacrosse, football, baseball, volleyball. There's so many, and our guys do a really awesome job with that. Our cyber security club is a marquee program at Loyola, and it lends itself to students that are interested in it in many different levels, whether you are just a novice or you have a keen interest, but I think that is the beauty of all the different clubs that we offer, is you don't have to have this deep love and interest and knowledge before you jump in. You're able to kind of dip your toe in and figure out, what's of interest to me, and navigate your path throughout your time at Loyola. And then athletics. We have a robust athletics program. We have some intramural sports as well as clubs. But every sport you can think of that the MIA sanctions, we have, and we are even exploring what a mountain biking official team looks like. So that gives you an idea, not just your traditional, sports that you see in the newspaper, but we even explore outside of that a bit. And we see our clubs, our athletics, our service projects, our retreats is not extracurriculars, but they're co-curriculars. It's a part of what we do. The learning doesn't stop in the classroom. It continues on the athletic field. It continues when you're in the cyber lab. It continues when you're going down to help out, with the church in Baltimore when we do our Christmas project initiative. So learning doesn't stop. We really try to make sure that the boys have the opportunity to continue to grow in their faith, grow as young men, grow in their learning, no matter where they are on our campus. So hope that gave you a little bit of an idea of what we offer and how the boys can be engaged outside of the classroom. And looks like the questions are pouring in, so I'll start looking through those as I toss it to Mr. Feeley, and he'll talk about next steps.
Oh, tried it again. I had the same problem Kyle did with my mute button. There may be families out there right now that are interested in this fall. What about this fall? Are we too late to the process? There are some of our classes that are closed out as to size, but we have flexibility. We do have some capacity in some of the middle school classes and for ninth grade. So if you are interested in learning more about this fall, I would encourage you to contact Mr. Abrams or me following this, and we'll be sending out a follow-up email later this evening or early tomorrow to give you some more information. So if that's a conversation you want to have, we can have that. Many of you, though, are planning ahead. Good for you. You're planners, and you're planning for this fall or the future. I tell everybody I'm surprised how often I say, under the normal circumstances, we would do this. But there's nothing normal right now, and it's likely going to be that way for the foreseeable future. So for the typical admissions exploration, that might begin with a shadow day and an open house, open campus opportunity. We're just not sure. We are bound by the CDC regulations and the governor's proclamations about social distancing and opening. So it's going to be a wait and see. We may, as I said earlier, have elements like this. So we're just not sure. But as we go into the fall season, typically what will happen is things will get going in earnest, say mid-August. We'll open the online application. You can begin to schedule, if they're going to occur, shadow day opportunities, or we'll give you further instructions at that point about what might be available. So be aware that those plans are being made. They're being made in coordination with the state boards of education. So we'll know more, say, about the 1st of August. But I do want to take this opportunity to express our gratitude once again for you joining us and taking your valuable time to learn more about Loyola. Obviously, we have a lot of passion for the place, right? It is a terrific school. I'm an alumnus. We've got alumnus on the line here. It is a great place and a great formative experience for your sons, and we hope you continue the conversation with us. So I'll kick it back to you, Mr. Abrams, if you want to be the MC for the questions. Some of those are getting answered. Feel free to stay on the line for those answers. I know we took you a little longer than the 30, 40 minutes that we planned, but we can continue those now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Feeley. The first question is for the Moores, and I know that you responded, but if you don't mind speaking to it, Mrs. Moore, just so that everybody can hear. And that question is, can the Moores please talk about how they got to know other parents?
Yes. So Loyola has an incredible family community. So I would recommend that when you send your son to Loyola, and when we tell our boys, just soak up everything you can, meet new friends, try new clubs, try new sports, or meet the people on your team. I would highly suggest that as parents, we take that same advice. And I will tell you with 100% confidence that when you go to any Loyola event, there are going to be so many parents that are going to be like, oh, wow, welcome to the family. Are you new here? What class is your son in? So anytime there's an event at Loyola, if you can, attend. And then also there's the Mothers Club, which any mother at Loyola, any father at Loyola, you're automatically in the Mothers Club or the Fathers Club. There are also class reps for every single grade. The class reps will plan activities for the boys as well as parent get-togethers, parent gatherings for the parents. And so there's so many opportunities to meet parents.
And so I would say that those are many of the formal ways that you can meet parents, but there are many informal ways that parents get together. So like I know here we'll host a pool party for people that are in our area and anybody else that decides they want to drive out this way. People will host, wine parties or a cocktail hour at their house, or they'll meet downtown. We have members of the community that own restaurants downtown and are in the area in Towson, and they'll meet there. So, and then one of the big things happens of the sports. If your son plays a sport or gets involved in sports, or what you'll find, even those that don't play some of the varsity sports, is they end up having an entire section, and so somebody has to drive them there, and the parents are there on the sidelines getting to know each other. But you have plenty of opportunities. Yeah,
thank you. Our next question is, do ninth graders get an advisor? Mr. Marana, would you like to talk to the layers of support for ninth graders? And maybe wrap in, another question was about, can you please talk about the support a student may receive when starting ninth grade at Loyola with regards to meeting others?
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to do that. So all of our students from 9 to 12 are assigned a counselor, and our freshmen, that's just specifically a guidance counselor. By the time they get to their junior year, that's a counselor who also serves as their college counselor. But in ninth grade, it's a guidance counselor that will check in with each student. But in addition to the guidance counselor assigned to each student, there is also a couple of different layers there. We also have the homeroom teacher. So homeroom is roughly twice a week where they'll meet in their homerooms for about 10 minutes at a time. And it's just a time to sort of check in and see what's happening. And it's also an organizational group for all kinds of different things, service activities and things like that. So you have the guidance counselor, and then you have the homeroom teacher. Each homeroom teacher has about 12 homeroom students for that homeroom. And then on top of that, there's a class dean. And the class dean is there to look out for the social and emotional well-being of the students as well, and to travel with them through all 4 years. So while the guidance counselor stays with the students for freshman year and sophomore year, and then that switches over to a college counselor, the dean is there all 4 years of high school, kind of following the class along. This structure also applies to the middle school. So our middle school students also have a guidance counselor. They also have their homeroom teacher. And then in middle school, there's also something called an advisory program. And that's a program in which middle school students learn some of those other skills, whether it's social skills, time management skills, emotional skills, to be successful students and just happy and healthy human beings. In terms of what the freshman program looks like, we have a really robust set of activities for our students as part of orientation and as part of the broader unfolding of activities freshman year. So the orientation is there are 2 days on campus where students are learning the nuts and bolts of what's happening on campus. But then there are 2 days that are really meant to get students to meet each other and mix in and get to know people from all kinds of different backgrounds. So there's a day where students are actually at a farm, first fruits farm, and they're either picking potatoes or picking corn as an act of service, but it's done in mixed groups, and it's just a great way for people to get to know each other even before your first day of classes begins. And then there's a day out on the ropes courses where students, again, do team building exercises and activities in just a really safe and fun environment. So those 4 days of orientation really lead to students getting to know lots of different people before they sit in their first day of classes and before they're mixed in with the rest of the upperclassmen. Not too long after that, there's the first mixer, and so then students are in a situation where they're being social with some of the local girls' schools as well. And so again, just another opportunity to meet people and to get to know each other a little bit better. And then by the first week of November, they have an overnight freshman retreat, which is on campus. And I think in many ways that it's such a powerful experience because it does two things. I think it solidifies a lot of the existing friendships, but also provides another great opportunity for people to meet others. They're mixed again with people who are not in their homeroom, so people they may not have been in touch with, and they do all kinds of different activities, whether it's kind of just fun, dodgeball type activities, team building activities, but also they get a chance. And again, first week in November now, they've been in school for about 2 months. They begin to process and reflect, as we've all been talking about, reflect a little bit on what that experience has been like, what's going well for them, who do they sit with at the cafeteria, and it's a chance for the students to get to know each other. That freshman retreat is held overnight on campus. The upperclassmen, so the juniors and seniors, lead that retreat, and they transform our classrooms into what look like college dorm rooms. So they put tents up and they put mattresses out and Christmas lights and all kinds of things. It's just a really cool environment, and they spend the night there. They are supervised, so usually I'm one of the faculty members that's sleeping out in the hallway and making sure everyone's keeping the noise down and getting to bed. But it's just a really powerful bonding experience that allows the students once again, if they had gotten into a rut where they hadn't been meeting people or things hadn't been going so well, they can kind of correct 2 months in and get to know each other even more. So freshman-wise, there are those activities packed into the first part, and then the deans continue with those kinds of social activities throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Marana. Could I ask that you elaborate a little bit more? We had a question about the college counseling process, maybe just the timeline of college counseling process.
Yeah, well, as the Moores know, that time goes quick, right? So you might say, okay, well, that's 4 years away, but it really does go quick. So here, for those of you who have maybe 8th graders now or 7th graders now, or rising 8th graders, You'd think that time would be a little whiles away. But really, at the end of the freshman year, we have a time when the college council do just say a word to all the freshmen, students, and parents to say, here's the kinds of things that you should be thinking about. By the end of sophomore year, you have another one of those meetings with the college counselors to begin getting a little bit more into detail. And then junior year, is when things pick up in earnest, being assigned to a college counselor, creating those accounts on the different college application platforms, beginning to talk to students about what their interests are and what their abilities are and what their dreams and hopes and passions are as they begin to think about what they want to do with their lives, more broadly speaking, in a vocational sense, and then what schools can help prepare their lives for that in a more kind of immediate college admission sense. So that takes place in earnest in junior year, and those conversations happen over the course of junior year. And then there is work that's set out for them by the end of the junior year. So, just last week, I got a number of recommendation requests, of current juniors who have been instructed by their counselors to say, okay, reach out to the teachers who you want to write your recommendations and have them write them over the summer. And so that, teachers are doing that over the summer. Students have been instructed to do that. And so they're continuing some of that work over the summer. They're instructed and guided in terms of when to take SATs or ACTs. What are the different timelines for different schools? When should they visit schools? They're instructed on all those matters. And then right before the senior year starts, there is a college application boot camp, as it were, as part of the senior orientation. They come in and they kind of do a 360 evaluation. Do you know what schools you're applying to? Do you know? Have you applied for financial aid if you're going to be requesting that? Do you know what you're going to be writing about for your essays? Do you know what it costs to apply to these different schools? Do you know where they are? Do you know what's happening? And if they don't, then college counselors are there to help and guide them, to make sure that all that information in their application is correct and filled out, so that they start the school year kind of ready to go. One of the things that all of our senior year English teachers do is they assign a college essay as one of those assignments. So I often tell students that you can think about applying to colleges as like another course, maybe even like another course and a half, because it takes a lot of time. And our English teachers do our students a favor by saying, okay, instead of writing a college essay and then having to worry about our essays, submit your college essays to us and we'll help you with organization, grammar, spelling. And in fact, our teachers do one-on-one conferences. Our English teachers do one-on-one conferences for college admissions essays. That's in addition to the college counselor that's meeting with a student throughout the senior year as well. So yeah, we could probably go on, but I think probably enough for now.
Thank you, Mr. Marana. A few middle school questions have come up, and please know that John O'Hara, our middle school principal, is on the line. His mic isn't working, so I'll take some of these questions for him. Are incoming sixth graders able to participate in our athletic programs? Do you pair younger students with upperclassmen? And how many students tend to be in some of your middle school classes? So for the athletics, our sixth graders are not able to participate on our Loyola Blakefield school teams. With that being said, when they get into seventh grade, that is when the after-school athletic program begins. Our sixth graders, all of our middle schoolers have PE as a part of their curriculum, but not until you get into seventh grade does our after-school athletic program begin. Pairing younger students with upperclassmen. We don't have a formal like Big Brother program, but there's many, I would say impromptu and unofficial ways that our older students engage with our younger students, whether that be some of our clubs are open to all grades, and so they get to engage with them there, whether it be with our retreat programs. I coach lacrosse, and we have some of our upperclassmen come out and help us out with different clinics that we're doing, or send them out to middle school practice before we practice after school. So there's no official capacity, but there's a lot of different ways that our upperclassmen get to engage with our younger guys and role model for them. And how many students tend to be in your middle school classes? Middle school is intentionally a smaller group of students in the classes. We're usually in our mid to high teens in our middle school classes there. So your students, your son would be in a class typically in that 17, 18, 19 range of students in a class there. The next question I'm seeing, I'll toss to Mr. Feeley. With the high school placement exams being canceled for rising 8th graders this past April, how will that impact the admissions process? Do you forecast the exams being administered in the fall?
Yeah, that's been an impediment. If you're following the news, you know the College Board is working on in-home SAT exams. And they haven't quite been able to roll that out yet. The ERB, the organization that administers the IC exam, the Independent School Entrance Exam, has been working on an at-home test as well, in which students would log in and complete the test in a certain time. They've had a tough time getting that off the ground at present. With the coming summer, however, these organizations think they're going to be able to work out some of those technological issues. And so there's going to be probably a number of ways to create assessments that we will use as part of the admissions process. Just to give you an overview, there's 2 different entrance exams. If your son is applying to the middle school, he's going to take that independent school entrance exam. That's offered, again, here comes that phrase, under normal circumstances. It's offered all throughout the fall and winter at a variety of local schools. You just register for it and take it on campus. There is more than likely going to be the opportunity for some on-campus testing, but the greater opportunity is going to be using the technology you have before you now. And those results will be recorded and then distributed to the schools. For the upper school, for our 9th grade entrance, that entrance exam is called the High School Placement Test, administered by the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Again, that's typically an on-campus opportunity. But again, the AOB is working on creating a platform where that can be administered remotely. The parochial schools, the Catholic schools in the area, have taken that on themselves of administering that test. So where once upon a time, all students came to a high school to take that test, now the individual parochial schools are offering that to their 8th graders. And then again, we're getting those scores. So are we going to have that opportunity? We are still going to have that opportunity. And even absent that, in a worst case scenario, if there's no IC, if there's no HSPT test, we have the capacity to create our own entrance exam assessment that we could administer to families. One of the things we've been doing this spring, I mentioned that we still have some openings available, especially at the middle school level and a couple of the grades there. I've been sending to parents to let them proctor tests for their sons to give them an assessment that we can then use as a benchmark for our for their application. So fear not, that part we'll be able to work through.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Feeley. Mr. Marana, another question for you. Can you elaborate on math and science opportunities and kind of what our curriculum in those 2 areas look like, and then possibly touch a little bit on our music program as well?
Sure. So our middle school math program builds so that students are able to take some algebra, and set them up on the progression in upper school, where they're taking some combination of algebra, geometry in their freshman, sophomore years, moving into pre-calculus and then calculus by the time that they're seniors. Probably about 40% of our students are ending their senior year with pre-calculus, 30 to 40% are ending with pre-calculus, with another 40% or so, maybe, well, I guess close to the 60% taking some form of calculus, either calculus 1, we have calculus 1 honors, we have AP calculus AB, and then AP calculus BC, so sort of those terminal levels of high school calculus that many schools offer. We also offer AP statistics as a course in the upper school. In terms of science, we have an integrated science program in the middle school of life and physical sciences, and preparing them with those basic skills so that when students get to high school, they take a year of biology, a year of chemistry, and then a year of physics, and then a number of different electives in their senior year, whether it's AP biology, AP physics, AP chemistry. We also offer AP environmental science, engineering, marine science, forensic science. So a number of different science opportunities in that senior year, and a number of different electives there as well. So that's a little bit about our math and science program. There are many, again, co-curricular activities, whether it's a math competition club or whether it's, ecology club, robotics that ties well into some of those things. And a lot of students kind of mixing and matching. So we have students who are in cyber, who are taking, cyber informatics along with an AP statistics class, along with a cyber science class, to mix and match that science, technology, and math education there. In terms of the music offering, so we have choral performance, we have instrumental music, and we have drama. All three, in both the middle school and in the upper school. We encourage students to do it. So all our sixth graders are in some form of music as a form of introduction and as a form of expression, quite frankly. There are multiple levels of that. So there's a chorus, but then for those who are interested and gifted in choral performance, that there is a more selective vocal ensemble that they can be part of. That happens in instrumental music as well. We don't currently have a strings, symphony orchestra, as it were, but we do have space for woodwinds and brass and percussionists who want to play in a concert band or who want to play in a jazz ensemble. And then on top of that, there is a club, the Jazz Combo Club, where that club actually writes their own music and performs, in jazz venues. So those are some of our offerings on the music side of things. Mr. Abrams, was there another question I didn't answer there?
No, I think that was perfect. And I want to swing quickly back to Mr. Feeley as a follow-up to the previous question. Just a timeline as to when you would suggest parents of rising eighth graders for the ninth grade high school admissions process to start to look at alternatives there. And then also, Mr. Feeley, about alternatives to visits, maybe in the summer, what we're looking at there, how that may work.
Sure. Before I jump into that, I just wanted to piggyback on something Mr. Marana was saying, and that's as you're exploring schools, I think one of the benefits of attending Loyola Blakefield is students are always going to be challenged to the best of their abilities by being placed in the most challenging class in individual curricular areas. And by that, I mean, if your son comes in and he's taking Algebra 2, that doesn't say, well, he's taking Algebra 2. That means he's taking this science class and this English class. They're all uncoupled. What we're going to attempt to do at all times, year over year, is place your son in the class that's most challenging to him in each of the individual curricular areas. And what that does is, while everybody maybe comes in at a different starting point, everybody reaches the pinnacle of their own success after 4 or 7 years. Students grow during that time. We know through our study of brain development that different lobes of the brain mature at different times. So students may come in and say, oh, I'm great at math and science. I'm going to be in advanced math and science, but I'm not a good English teacher. Well, that hurts my soul as a former English teacher. But what they can do is they can, through the interaction with the curriculum, through the teachers that I mentioned earlier, they can grow and they can say, Mr. Feeley, I'm ready for AP English, or I'm ready for advanced English. And we can seamlessly move them year over year. So your sons we never use the word track at Loyola. Track implies something you either can't get on or can't get off. It's about year over year, what's the most challenging set of classes that's going to set your son up for success during this year, that's going to create maybe a little bit of anxiety for him, good academic anxiety, but prepares him to leave Loyola and go to some of the most competitive colleges and universities in the country. And I really think that's a hallmark of our school. In terms of opportunities for visits, we just don't know. We are trying, like all institutions that have lots of traffic, movie theaters, restaurants, schools. We're trying to limit that human traffic, which comes with its own problems of the conveyance of the COVID-19 virus, perhaps. And so we're looking at opportunities to open the school carefully and cautiously, but we're also looking at access to things like our bookstore. Is that going to be open? What about sports? How are we going to have sporting events? So we're very cautious about that. At the moment, we just don't have an answer. We would likely, if I had to put my guessing cap on, and I'm not very good at that because I haven't hit the lottery yet, but we'll probably use this format a little bit in the fall or the early fall. Is there a possibility that we could open the campus for some sort of modified open house? It's possible. But in the meantime, we have a virtual visit link on our admissions page on our website. You can take a look at that. You can have a tour of the school by a video that we produced a few years ago. So there are opportunities to engage us. It's one that we can't predict right now, whether it's in person or how soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Feeley. One question we have is, how do students learn to balance all that is offered and all the fantastic elements that make Dons? Kyle, do you want to touch a little bit on how you navigate your time management? And maybe I'll follow up with anything there.
Well, it's been hard to have a balance when we left for COVID, when we had the snow day in place. It was hard to find a balance because all of our teachers thought that the other classes weren't assigning work. So we got assigned a metric buttload of work. But as we got into where we met our teachers twice a week, the balance started to level out. And as Mr. Feeley says, under normal circumstances, you have to get into a routine where you find out what's due, when you're going to do it, and then you have to actually do it. It's no different than any other school. You have to get the work done, but there are things here that can help you. Like, we have a math lab that can help you when you are having problems with math, or science teachers are always open to help you with whatever you need, or so's English. And teachers are always there to help, no matter what you need. And students will also help each other as well. Like I said earlier, my friend Tyler helps me with math because I'm okay, but he's a lot better at math than I am. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to make the right friends and, find out a system that works for you.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Kyle. And then some other pieces that we have in place to support students as they are trying to, navigate their entrance into high school. And with that comes more work and more demand from their teachers is our new schedule is going to give all students are going to have a free period. Previously, we could not guarantee that every day a ninth grade student would have a free period in their schedule the way that the schedule was configured. Now, every ninth grade student will be guaranteed a free period as well as then their lunch period in their schedule. We acknowledge that our students are busy. We have about 80% of our guys participate in one sport. It's about the high 50s that are participating in 2 or more sports. So we acknowledge our guys are engaged in athletics, and then our club program, as I noted earlier, is very robust. And so after school, their time is at a premium. So we wanted to build in time during their day that they could, like Kyle said, meet with their teacher. Our new schedule was going to guarantee that each one of our high school students has a free period lined up with their teacher. So you're never trying to chase your teacher before or after school. If you're scheduling ahead of time with your teacher, you know that between your lunch period and your free period, you will be guaranteed some time to meet with your teacher. And that, I think, is a very welcomed and nice addition to our schedule there. Our school building is open under normal circumstances. How this will function this year to be seen, but our school building is typically open well into the evening. And so if students know that Loyola, working on the balcony above the cafeteria or finding a quiet space somewhere in the gym is a place that you can focus, get some work done, that space is available. So, you have a long ride back home. Maybe it's easier for you to jump into your work right after school. We try to allow and give access to our students so that they can use our entire campus, feel comfortable in the space, and be able to get the work done at the rate that they feel is going to be beneficial to them. And I think, like Kyle said, the routine is very important. And I think having your counselor, your homeroom teacher, there's a lot of people that are available to you that can help you put together your routine, help you troubleshoot what is going on a day-to-day basis so that you feel like you're above water and that you're succeeding, that you're fully able to access the curriculum on a daily basis. Mr. Marana or Mr. Feeley, anything there that you guys wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if I could. Loyola is a challenging place. Academically, it's rigorous. It's tough. As Percy said, it's well known. Its reputation is well earned. But what I often say, and this is based on my own experience as a student there many years ago and my own experience as a teacher, is that a school that's got academic rigor but doesn't have support that's an equation for frustration on the part of the students. So the expectation of teachers, and it's not a professional expectation, they want to do it. The teachers are there to support your sons. They carve out time before school, after school, surrendering their lunch period, whatever it might be. I was fond of telling students that I had in my class that when we would go over the syllabus at the beginning of the year, I would talk about my office hours. And I'd say, you are directing my office hours, because you have to tell me when you would like to meet. I will make myself available, but you're the one who's going to self-advocate and say, Mr. Feeley, can we meet during this time? That's a hallmark of Loyola Blakefield, the amount of support that the teachers will provide your sons. Is it unending? No, but it's pretty close. Brian.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would just exactly right. I'd add on to that twice a week homeroom is a great time for many of our homeroom teachers just to help the freshmen to say, hey, this is what you need to be thinking about at this point in time. It's one of the reasons why our student activities fair is a couple weeks into the school year. It's towards the end of September, so that students aren't overwhelmed in those first few days, because it really is a lot coming at them. But so those homeroom teachers and the deans will remind the students, hey, this week is the student activities fair. Keep an eye out for that. A couple weeks later, they'll say, hey, it's freshman retreat time. Remember, here's what to be mindful for that. And as we get closer to exams, they'll say, hey, this is what you might want to think about as we begin preparing reviewers for all these exams, and here are some things that you can do. So those regular check-ins with homeroom, community homeroom, with the deans and the homeroom advisors really go a long way to sort of help teach the students how to balance and how to take things on one piece at a time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Marana and Mr. Feeley. It looks like maybe our last question here, how many students, and if you do have more, please don't hesitate to put them in. How many students are in your high school, and what is your average class size? So our high school has about 730 students. Our classes will fluctuate a little bit in size depending on the subject area. So classes that we want to engage the students in robust conversation, theology, your history class, they may be a little bit larger, in the low 20s. Your math and your science class are in that 17, 18 range. English is a class that we really want to engage in the students. We want to collaborate with the teacher, making sure that the teacher has enough capacity to be able to give meaningful feedback. And so that could look in that 14 to 16 range. Your languages, depending on what you're taking, where you place, that can really range. Spanish, Latin are two of our more popular languages, so those would be larger classes. Italian, ancient Greek, those are more niche languages. Not as many students are taking those, so those can be smaller classes, even in the single digits or very low double-digit numbers. So it really depends on the class. Whenever somebody asks the average class size, I always hesitate to give that 17 to 1 student to teacher ratio because I don't think that fairly portrays the whole story. So it really depends on the subject that the student is in.
And our freshman class is typically about 185, and that really makes us an outlier among schools. You'll typically find schools having individual classes that are much larger than that, 300 or 400 students in a class, or much smaller. I love that size. For us, what does it mean? It means you can, as Mr. Abrams described it, have small individual class sections. You can also have meaningful opportunities as a member of your class, right? You're going to play a sport. You're going to be involved in multiple clubs, but it's small enough that you're known. You're known to all your students intimately among the teachers. So you know what their strengths and weaknesses are and what their challenges will be so that you can support them. So big enough so that there are lots and lots of opportunities, small enough that they're known and supported.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like that's our last question. So on behalf of everybody that spoke tonight, the entire Loyola Blakefield community, we thank you all for coming and joining us. I know this is new for us as well, and we appreciate you all being a part of that. And we will, as Mr. Feeley said earlier, send a follow-up email. Mr. Robinson just dropped a link for additional information that can be found on our website, but we'll send a follow-up email that will have our contact information. And please know we're more than happy to correspond with you via another Microsoft Teams chat session, one-on-one, a phone call, or whatever is best for your family as you're going through this process. So again, we say thank you.
And good night.
And good night.